You thought the Cardi B and Offset saga was over? Think again. Buckle up, because what just went down makes every past scandal look like a polite tea party. Did Offset really just have the audacity to mock Cardi for, wait for it, being cheated on? On a podcast of all places, with a smug grin like the world owes him a medal for surviving his own mess? And now the internet is on fire. Debates are erupting in every comment section, and every single timeline from TikTok to X is buzzing with the question, how much more disrespect can one woman endure before she snaps? But here's the kicker. This isn't just a petty celebrity feud. No, we're talking decades of betrayals, Instagram live call-outs, Super Bowl-level shade, and a side chick cameo that makes your head spin. And let's not forget the newest twist in this circus. Stefan Diggs, Pry, and then leaked threats that could make a Hollywood thriller blush. So sit down, grab your popcorn, and strap in, because what we're about to unpack isn't gossip. It's a full-blown cultural earthquake, and Cardi B is not holding anything back. Are you ready to see the receipts, the betrayal, and the ultimate clapback that's shaking the internet to its core? Because once this drops, there's no going back. You know when someone crosses the line so many times that you start questioning reality? That's exactly where we are right now with Cardi B and Offset. It all started with that podcast clip that dropped like a bomb in early 2026. Offset, sitting there like a man who's completely convinced he's the crown jewel of the music world, dared to say the words that made the internet collectively lose it. None that I left went up. Let that sink in. A man who was caught cheating multiple times, who has publicly humiliated the woman he married, who spent nearly a decade testing her patience, is now claiming that the woman he left, the woman he betrayed, somehow didn't go up? The audacity is so staggering that even casual fans were left blinking at their screens, asking themselves if they had misheard reality. Let's back up for a moment and remember the pattern here. Offset's history isn't subtle. It's textbook serial infidelity. The cheating videos from 2017, barely months after their secret wedding? Check. The public apologies on stages that looked like a bizarre mix of apology tour and reality TV spectacle? Check. The Rolling Loud incident with a sign made of roses? Check. Every single misstep, every single betrayal has been documented, scrutinized, and memed into eternity. And yet, here he was, on a podcast in 2026, acting like he was the victim in a narrative where he has been the architect of chaos since the very beginning. And Cardi? Cardi didn't just hear the words. She felt the years of disrespect, the accumulation of deceit, the way her loyalty had been weaponized against her over and over again. When that clip hit social media, it didn't just circulate, it detonated. Fans, trolls, bloggers, even casual scrollers were suddenly thrust into the middle of a saga that read like a Shakespearean tragedy, but with more chains, more red carpets, and way more Instagram live call-outs. Cardi immediately took to her battlefield of choice, Instagram Live, and she went nuclear. This wasn't a measured clapback or a clever meme. No, this was 9 years of stacked-up betrayal pouring out in real time. I don't care. You're lame, and them is lames too, she said, and the platform collectively gasped. Lame. That word isn't just a dismissal. In the Bronx vernacular, in the streets, in the culture, it's the ultimate stripping away of power. It says, you are irrelevant. You and everyone who ever touched my life inappropriately are beneath me. And Cardi meant every syllable. But let's be real. This didn't happen in a vacuum. Cardi's reaction was fueled by a decade of betrayal that goes deeper than public cheating scandals. It goes back to the very foundation of their marriage, to pregnancy, postpartum struggles, public accusations, and the quiet moments of emotional manipulation that the world rarely sees. She blocked him, not out of spite, but because she had to preserve what little sanity she could during a marriage that was disintegrating in real time. And she endured public humiliation, she endured accusations of her own fidelity, and she endured the kind of manipulation that makes you question reality itself. And yet, through all of that, she continued to rise. She didn't crumble. She didn't retreat. She built a career, raised her children, and became a cultural force that no podcast comment could diminish. Offset's audacity, though, didn't stop there. The Joe Budden podcast wasn't just a casual conversation. For a man who has been caught cheating multiple times, who has publicly humiliated his spouse repeatedly, who has spent years being the subject of memes and gossip columns, this was a calculated move. He threw that line knowing exactly the chaos it would ignite, knowing that Cardi's response would dominate timelines, knowing that fans would collectively scrutinize every ounce of history between them. And yet, he proceeded, because that is the hallmark of someone who refuses to acknowledge the damage they have caused. Someone who believes their own narrative, who believes the world should applaud their survival rather than condemn their repeated abuses. And that's where the scandal starts to get layered, because the drama isn't just about words on a podcast. It's about history, power, betrayal, and timing. Cardi B's response wasn't simply about being insulted. It was about reclaiming narrative control. It was about saying, with every ounce of energy and emotion she had left after years of being mistreated, that she was no longer a pawn in a story designed by someone else. She wasn't just defending herself. She was defending her children, her career, and her legacy. "I regret you. I'm too good for you. I always been too good for you," she said in another live. 3 words that carry a weight far beyond the immediate insult. They encapsulate a decade of trauma, loyalty, forgiveness, and finally, the cathartic acknowledgement of self-worth. And the streets agreed. The world agreed. She wasn't just talking. She was delivering a verdict, and everyone was listening. And then the stakes got even higher. By January 2026, the narrative was no longer simply about past betrayals. It was about current actions, current stakes, and current power moves. Cardi had moved on, publicly seen with NFL star Stefon Diggs, glowing, empowered, and visibly thriving. The timing couldn't have been more perfect to highlight the contrast. The woman who was once publicly humiliated now radiated control and success, while the man trying to claim the moral high ground had spent the last decade proving otherwise. Social media exploded. The comments section, from Twitter to Reddit, became a battleground. Fans debated, dissected, and memed every angle. Every clip from the podcast, every Instagram live moment, every throwback scandal resurfaced, and the narrative grew exponentially more dramatic with each passing hour. Yet, even as Cardi reclaimed her throne, the ghosts of the past refused to stay buried. Offset's side moves, his past indiscretions, and the very existence of women like Pry, the alleged former mistress, added layers of tension that made this story almost unwatchably compelling. Pry's presence, whether in media coverage or alleged appearances at events, became symbolic. She represented the continuing chaos that Cardi had had to navigate, and a reminder of the emotional labor, the public scrutiny, and the personal betrayals that had defined her life with Offset. Every reference, every rumor, every leak contributed to a narrative that was simultaneously dramatic, ironic, and excruciatingly public. And so here we are, at the precipice of what would become one of the most explosive chapters in modern celebrity history. Part of the genius, or insanity, of this saga is the way it blends personal betrayal with public spectacle. Cardi isn't just reacting. She's performing the role of empowered survivor while the world watches, critiques, and cheers. Offset isn't just commenting. He's perpetuating a cycle of chaos that draws in every observer, every gossip outlet, and every armchair critic who believes they understand the real story. The combination of history, timing, and public attention creates a pressure cooker of drama that is impossible to ignore. And here's the part that makes you lean in closer. The part where the narrative truly starts to spiral. The Super Bowl, the new relationships, the side chicks, and the leaks from alleged insiders. Everything Cardi B has endured, every betrayal, every humiliation, was about to intersect with a stage so public, so massive, and so culturally significant that the stakes were no longer hypothetical. The world was watching, not just to see music performances or NFL highlights, but to witness the collision of personal history and public spectacle. And that collision? It was about to redefine every expectation about who emerges unscathed when a decade of drama finally erupts. And just when you thought this story couldn't get any more tangled, the layers of irony, a betrayal and public spectacle began stacking like dominoes, ready to fall in the most cinematic fashion imaginable. But that, my friends, is where this video begins. Because the next chapter doesn't just unpack what happened, it reveals how the Super Bowl, Stefon Diggs, pry, and leaked threats turned an already explosive feud into a spectacle that nobody could have predicted, and yet everyone was talking about. And just like that, the plot thickened, and the stakes skyrocketed. Enter the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 60, February 8th, 2026. The stage where everything Cardi B had endured and overcome would collide with one of the most ironic, almost comically cruel twists in modern celebrity history. Cardi B had moved on, radiant with newfound happiness alongside NFL wide receiver Stefon Diggs, and a man whose bank account and star power seemed to match the energy she now carried. Fans called it the ultimate upgrade, a narrative so satisfying it almost felt scripted. But little did she, or anyone watching, know that fate, karma, or whoever writes these celebrity storylines had drafted a scene straight out of a Hollywood dark comedy. Cardi was set to perform at halftime, an event watched by hundreds of millions globally. But the twist wasn't on stage. It was in the stands. Sitting in the friends and family section, wearing a Wags jacket, casually enjoying VIP access, was Pry. Yes, Pry, Offset's alleged former mistress, one of the women who had played a role in the chaos of Cardi's past marriage. Pause for a second and let that sink in. The woman who, by all accounts, contributed to years of betrayal was now literally present at the same venue as Cardi, invited by her new man's connections. Social media blew up instantly. Fans were screaming in disbelief, journalists were scrambling for comment, and the gossip feeds lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. The optics were undeniable. Pry's presence felt almost like a message, intentional or not, and the internet did not hesitate to speculate. Was this a calculated jab by Stefon Diggs? Did he know who she was and why her presence would sting so deeply? Or was it sheer coincidence, a cruel twist of fate at the most public of stages? Either way, the narrative was perfect. Cardi, performing to a global audience, radiating power, while a ghost from her past sat in the very section meant to signify celebration and support. Within hours, the clips of her performance were trending, but so were the videos showing Pry in the stands. Screenshots flooded X, Reddit threads exploded, and TikTok remixes of the moment started circulating like wildfire. The symmetry was almost too perfect, too clean, too narratively delicious. And if you thought that was the only layer, you'd be wrong. The drama didn't stop at social media speculation. Rumors began circulating that Diggs had been involved with his own ex, Sky Marlene, around the same time, creating a tangled web that made the situation almost cartoonishly chaotic. Cardi and Diggs unfollowed each other on Instagram within the same night, a modern equivalent of changing the locks, signaling to the world that something serious had gone down. The media frenzy didn't just report, it sensationalized every microsecond, every glance, and every side-eye caught on camera. The story wasn't just about betrayal, it became a lesson in irony, timing, and the cruelly precise nature of celebrity misfortune. Meanwhile, Offset stayed conspicuously silent. But insiders whispered, leaked texts suggested, and anonymous sources claimed that he was very much involved behind the scenes, allegedly orchestrating some of the chaos by tipping gossip outlets or subtly fueling the narrative in ways that ensured Cardi's public humiliation would be amplified. The audacity of the man is staggering. Having spent a decade as the architect of his own drama, now allegedly meddling in the next chapter of the woman he betrayed, ensuring that chaos followed her even into her newfound happiness. Every podcast clip, every leaked conversation, every old Instagram story was suddenly being dissected anew. And then came the FaceTime leaks. According to our totally unverifiable but highly entertaining sources, Offset allegedly attempted to provoke Cardi directly, calling to parade other women in front of her face, trying to elicit jealousy and insecurity even after she had moved on. "He likes to play games with me," Cardi said in one of her live sessions, the words carrying layers of meaning no amount of context could dilute. It wasn't about flaunting new partners. It was about control, power, and a relentless obsession that refused to die, even when the relationship officially ended. The emotional manipulation wasn't subtle. It was textbook, surgical, and delivered in a way that only someone with years of toxic practice could perfect. Social media erupted. Fans, bloggers, and armchair detectives analyzed every screenshot, every snippet, every rumor, with the precision of forensic investigators. Reddit threads exploded with thousands of comments debating whether Diggs knew what he was doing, whether Prize presence was a tactical power move, or whether the entire sequence was orchestrated by Offset for maximum psychological impact. Memes circulated faster than breaking news, with captions like, "Cardi moves on, Diggs plays chess, Offset throws the grenade," and "Hollywood rejects this plot for being too unrealistic." But reality had just outdone fiction. As if that wasn't enough, the threats began to surface. Selena Powell, notorious for her industry leaks, added fuel to the fire by sharing alleged FaceTime videos where Offset reportedly threatened Diggs directly, even mentioning violent acts like shooting him in the knee. Let's pause and be real. This isn't just celebrity shade. This crosses the line into criminal territory. The internet collectively recoiled. Comments went from memes to real concern. "This is dangerous. Someone call the authorities," and "Offset is unhinged. This is beyond Instagram drama." Legal analysts started weighing in hypothetically, discussing restraining orders, lawsuits, and liability. The narrative escalated from entertainment to genuinely alarming territory. Meanwhile, the paternity chaos added another insane layer. In November 2025, Offset allegedly tried to claim that Cardi's new baby with Diggs was actually his own, publicly, on social media. The post was deleted, of course, but the intent was clear: destabilize, create doubt, and assert influence over a life that had moved beyond him. It was the ultimate power move, and blending audacity, obsession, and a dramatic flair that only Offset could manage. Fans saw it immediately for what it was: emotional manipulation wrapped in absurdity. Every clip, every screenshot, every deleted post became evidence in the court of public opinion that the man simply could not accept Cardi's freedom, happiness, or autonomy. And yet, Cardi's response was a masterclass in control and self-preservation. Despite the chaos, she didn't crumble. She didn't lash out blindly. She addressed every angle publicly, strategically, and devastatingly. She exposed the pattern of manipulative behavior, the timing of emotional games, and the repetitive cycle of betrayal that had defined her relationship with Offset for nearly a decade. "Yo, this really like to play games with me when I'm at my most vulnerable time," she said, pinpointing the calculated nature of the attacks. It wasn't performance, it was truth, raw and unfiltered, amplified by a platform that magnified her voice far beyond what Offset could ever control. And just when you thought the saga had reached its peak, it pivoted again, because the leaks, the threats, and the public spectacle weren't the final act. They were the setup. The Super Bowl, prize presents, Diggs's alleged involvement with other women, the FaceTime manipulations, and Offset's paternity claims all converged into a powder keg of drama that could detonate at any moment. The world was watching, invested, and ready to react. Every journalist, every fan account, every gossip site knew that the next move would be explosive. And that's exactly why this chapter doesn't end here. And now, the fallout. But the moment the Super Bowl chaos went viral, the story didn't just trend, it detonated. Cardi B had performed in front of hundreds of millions, yet the narrative shifted immediately from music and halftime spectacles to a tangled web of betrayal, manipulation, and chaos that nobody saw coming. Every angle was dissected, every clip analyzed, every screenshot preserved in digital eternity. Fans were furious, trolls were gleeful, and journalists were scrambling for statements, leaks, and any hint of confirmation that could fuel the next 24-hour news cycle. The cultural conversation had officially shifted. This was no longer about a celebrity feud. This was about psychological warfare, power dynamics, and public humiliation executed with precision. Cardi's response, however, was textbook empowerment. Despite the chaos, the leaks, the threats, and the public humiliation, she refused to be cornered. In multiple Instagram lives, she called out Offset for his decades-long pattern of betrayal. "You've been doing me dirty for years, and now you want to act like the prize?" she said, cutting through the noise with the kind of clarity and authority that only she could deliver. Cardi wasn't just speaking to Offset, she was speaking to the public, to fans, to anyone who had ever been dismissed, disrespected, or manipulated by someone who should have cared. It was raw, unfiltered, and devastatingly effective. Legal analysts started weighing in immediately after Selena Powell's leaks surfaced, alleging violent threats and FaceTime harassment. The question on everyone's mind: could Offset face real-world consequences for his actions? And threats against a professional NFL athlete like Stefon Diggs aren't just gossip. They are potential criminal acts. Police statements were speculated about. Lawyers were consulted anonymously by media outlets, and sources claimed that Diggs' team was evaluating options. Meanwhile, the public debate raged online, with fans demanding accountability and calling for restraining orders, lawsuits, and serious intervention. The narrative had escalated from Instagram drama to full-blown legal jeopardy in a matter of hours. But it wasn't just the legal angle. There was financial and reputational fallout to consider. Offset's brand, already tied to decades of scandal, took another hit. Sponsors, business partners, and collaborators reportedly began reevaluating associations, worried that any connection could bring additional public scrutiny. And sources close to the music industry claimed that several deals were on pause, while anonymous insiders suggested that executives were quietly monitoring every social media move for potential PR disasters. Meanwhile, Cardi B, ever the savvy businesswoman, leaned into her platform, continuing to build her empire while publicly dismissing the chaos as irrelevant to her personal and professional growth. The irony was almost poetic. Offset had tried to assert dominance, control the narrative, and remind Cardi of her past vulnerabilities, only to find that she had leveled up, evolved, and strategically neutralized every attack. From performing at the Super Bowl with unmatched confidence to publicly exposing patterns of manipulation, Cardi had turned every perceived disadvantage into a showcase of power. But the audience wasn't just watching a celebrity feud. They were witnessing a masterclass in reclaiming narrative authority in real time. Meanwhile, Pry, the alleged former mistress, remained a lightning rod in the media storm. Her presence at the Super Bowl, whether deliberate or coincidental, became a focal point for discussions about karma, timing, and irony. Social media users dissected her every move, creating memes, viral threads, and speculative reports that questioned whether this was a coincidence or a calculated statement. Every angle of the story seemed to amplify Cardi's triumph and highlight Offset's increasingly desperate attempts to remain relevant in a narrative that he no longer controlled. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get more intense, the paternity claims resurfaced. Offset allegedly tried to assert that Cardi's new baby with Diggs could somehow be his own. Public outrage was instantaneous. Cardi responded swiftly, calling the claims harassment and absurdity in the same breath. Legal experts weighed in hypothetically, discussing the implications of paternity fraud and emotional manipulation. Meanwhile, social media users were relentless, dissecting every post, every comment, every deleted story to analyze intent, credibility, and the sheer audacity of attempting to destabilize someone's life in such a public manner. Through it all, Cardi B's focus remained sharp. She wasn't just reacting, she was controlling the narrative. In podcasts, interviews, and Instagram lives, she highlighted the repetitive patterns of betrayal she had endured with Offset and the attempts to manipulate her even after moving on. She emphasized self-care, empowerment, and protecting her children's well-being above all else. Fans responded in droves, praising her resilience, commenting on her strength, and framing her as a cultural icon, not just for music, but for navigating public trauma with intelligence and authority. The Super Bowl, the leaks, the threats, the side chicks, and the paternity chaos all created a crucible of drama that tested Cardi's resolve. Yet, the woman who had been publicly humiliated, betrayed, and manipulated repeatedly did what few expected. She rose above. She purchased a $500,000 watch as a statement of self-worth, a literal and figurative symbol that her value was not dependent on any man's approval. Fans called it a queen move. Trolls sneered. But the message was clear. Cardi B would no longer be defined by the mistakes, threats, or manipulations of others. Public perception shifted almost overnight. Cardi became the embodiment of resilience in pop culture. A woman who endured betrayal, humiliation, and threats, yet emerged stronger, more confident, and unapologetically herself. Offset, by contrast, found himself increasingly isolated. Sponsors hesitated, fans debated whether his behavior crossed legal boundaries, and his public image suffered from a combination of scandal fatigue and the perception that he was unable to grow, evolve, or take responsibility for his actions. Even the narrative surrounding Diggs took a twist. While rumors swirled about his involvement with Pry and other women, his response remained muted, carefully measured, and professional. Fans debated endlessly whether he acted knowingly or innocently, and the speculation itself only fueled the ongoing media storm. The triangle of chaos, Cardi, Offset, Diggs, and Pry, continued to dominate feeds, and every new clip, statement, or leak added layers to the story that seemed almost impossible to resolve. By late February, the conversation had shifted from gossip to reflection. Analysts, pop culture commentators, and media personalities began framing the saga in broader terms. Toxic masculinity, cycles of forgiveness that become cycles of abuse, and the challenges of maintaining personal autonomy under the public microscope. Offset's repeated attempts to dominate narratives and manipulate outcomes became case studies in how not to manage a personal brand in the digital age. Cardi's rise, in contrast, became a blueprint for empowerment, resilience, and strategic media mastery. Yet even with all the empowerment and control, the story wasn't fully closed. Legal experts continued to speculate on potential restraining orders, harassment claims, and paternity disputes. Social media users continued to analyze every interaction, every post, every subtle dig. Cardi's focus on self-care, her music, and her children remained unshakable. But the public eye never wavered, always searching for the next twist, the next revelation, the next live session where she might drop another truth bomb that would dominate headlines. And here's the lesson, the real takeaway from this entire saga. In the era of social media, celebrity drama is never linear. Betrayal, power plays, threats, and manipulation are magnified, dissected, and turned into a global spectacle. The Cardi B's story is more than gossip. It's a reflection of the cultural obsession with conflict, survival, and narrative control. The woman who was cheated on, mocked, and threatened has turned those experiences into a narrative of empowerment, wealth, and control. The man who tried to dominate the story through manipulation, audacity, and threats now faces public scrutiny, legal ambiguity, and reputational damage. So what comes next? That, dear viewers, is anyone's guess. Will Offset attempt another audacious move? Will Diggs's involvement in the Price saga lead to more complications? Will Cardi continue to rise above and rewrite the rules of celebrity power dynamics in real time? History tells us one thing. With these players, the next explosion is never more than one Instagram Live, one podcast, or one Super Bowl away. Yeah, and the world will be watching, analyzing, and debating every second of it. Cardi has made her choice. She has asserted her independence, reclaimed her narrative, and made it abundantly clear that her value is not contingent on anyone else's validation. Offset's story is now a cautionary tale about what happens when ego, obsession, and audacity collide. And for the rest of us, we're left with a saga that has everything: betrayal, irony, power plays, public humiliation, legal questions, and the kind of spectacle that keeps social media feeds burning 24/7. This is not just entertainment. This is a cultural event, a lesson in resilience, and a masterclass in narrative control. And while the dust may settle, the echoes of this drama will reverberate through pop culture for years to come. Our Cardi B isn't just surviving the chaos, she's thriving in it, turning every challenge into proof that no one, not even Offset, can dictate the trajectory of her story. So what do you think? Is Cardi B finally done with the drama, or is this just another chapter in a saga that refuses to end? Did Offset cross the line this time, or is he just playing the same reckless games he's always played, hoping the world forgets? And what about Stefon Diggs? Was he unknowingly caught in the crossfire, or is there more to Price's Super Bowl cameo than meets the eye? The questions are endless, and the answers? Well, that's what keeps the internet buzzing. We've witnessed betrayal, manipulation, paternity chaos, and Super Bowl-level irony, all unfolding in real time. But one thing is clear. Cardi B is rewriting the rules, claiming her power, and showing the world exactly what it means to rise above. So now we turn it over to you. What's your take on this explosive saga? Who do you think comes out on top? And who's left holding the bag of public humiliation? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you're shook, and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter, because with these players, the drama is never over. The next bombshell could drop any second, and you won't want to miss it.